In this episode, we talk about the subtle ways we limit our own joy. Welcome to The Blissful Life, a podcast where we awaken the wisdom of self and explore the lessons, the rituals, and the pathways to inner bliss. I'm your host, Regina Lawless, former corporate executive turned author and spiritual teacher. And I'm on a mission, y'all, to help people connect to and express their divine self so they can make their unique impact on the world. If you've been feeling like there is more to life than the hustle and grind, then you found your tribe. It's time to breathe and relax into the blissful life. Welcome back. So today I want to talk about joy, and what got me thinking about this topic. A few weeks ago, I was doing a book signing. So I was in Barnes & Noble, set up at my table, and I love doing book signings. It's such a treat for me to get a chance to engage with readers or potential readers. And I get to share with them personally why I wrote the book, what the book is about, and just have really fun conversations. It's always a really cool experience for me. So I was doing my book signing in Barnes & Noble. And this particular weekend, we had my fiance and I, we had his daughter, and she is such a ball of joy. She is the sweetest thing, and I feel so blessed to have her in my life now. But at any rate, she's doing what children do, and she's having fun. She was in front of the table doing the latest TikTok dance, and this woman walked by and she says, "Oh, I'm too old to dance. And I got all these aches and pains." And I told her, I said, "Oh, I'm with you on the aches and pains, but you're never too old to dance." In that split second exchange, it made me think of how we as adults often limit ourselves from having even a little bit of fun. And I'm not saying that this lady needed to bust out an entire TikTok dance in the middle of Barnes and Noble, although she could if that brought her joy. I think that for us as adults, whatever our thing is, we often find little reasons like that to say, "I'm too old," or "I'm too whatever," to do the things that we enjoy doing. And I've been reflecting on that a lot lately and thinking about how joy has really been the catalyst to me living my most blissful life. Right now I'm reading a book. I read a lot, and I read voraciously about spirituality. And one of the spiritual books I'm reading right now is called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And he has a chapter called Unconditional Happiness. And in this chapter, he talks about how we as human beings have all these decisions, or we tell ourselves that we have to decide all of these things, like where we're going to live, or what job we're going to have, or what partner we're going to have, whether we're going to get married, etc., etc. But he said there's really only one basic decision in life, and that's to choose or decide whether you want to be happy or whether you don't want to be happy. And if you're listening to this, you might be thinking like, life is not that simple. What do you mean I can just choose to be happy or choose to not be happy? What he says is that it's our deep-seated preferences that keep us from being truly happy. Let's think about that for a second. We all have preferences of how we want to live. And another way to think of preferences is conditions, right? So you may have, whether knowingly or subconsciously, have a condition for when I achieve this or when I experience this, I will be happy. I know I had that. I was thinking that once I achieve a certain level at my job, oh, I've made it. Then I'm going to be happy. I'm going to have all the money I need to take care of my family. I'm going to have the status. I'm going to have whatever. Or if I live in this neighborhood, if I buy this house, if I drive this car, you know what I'm talking about. We all have these conditions or preferences, and we think if those preferences are met, we're going to be happy. But what happens when those preferences don't work out the way that they're supposed to? What Michael is suggesting in his book is, how do you find happiness? How do you choose happiness anyway? And I think for us, we are conditioned to not allow the more subtle forms of happiness or joy into our life, because in many ways we're either looking for this set preference or condition or this big thing to happen to change everything, and we're missing the everyday moments of joy. And so in my book, I call this test driving joy, test driving it, because I think we have a way, especially as adults, of like dipping our toe into joy. Oh, I will, get a mani-pedi every couple of weeks. Or I will go out to dinner with my partner once a month. Or I may every few months allow myself to have a massage. Or I'll take one special vacation a year. Oh, I can't possibly do that. I'm too busy at work. Oh no, that's silly. I can't do that anymore. I haven't done that since I was a kid. Think about all the ways you might see somebody having fun and then talk yourself out of like, oh, no, I can't do that. We let embarrassment or shame or guilt or whatever get in the way of us even having the simplest of pleasures, the simple things that make us happy. And part of that is our conditioning. The older we get, society makes us feel that we have to fit into some sort of structure. We have all these responsibilities, and I have this title, and I'm this, and I'm that. All of those things, that rigid way of being, can keep us from enjoying life to the fullest. If you've ever seen children playing outside, you know what I'm talking about. We were doing a photo shoot this weekend, and out at this outdoor area in Oakland, Brooklyn Basin is what it's called. And it's a beautiful outdoor area. Kids were riding bikes, just all kinds of things. And it was so cute. These were toddlers learning how to ride a bike for the first time. But when I tell you, they were so involved and just so into it and so free. One little boy, I was worried. I thought he was going to ride himself right into a park bench. He didn't care. He was living his best life. He was like barreling down. His dad was trying to chase after him, like he was gone. But you could just see the smile on his face. It was the cutest thing. And I always look to children as a reminder of our natural state of being. If you ever watch a child, they're not thinking about all of the responsibilities. Now, granted, they don't really have any as children. So I know what you're thinking. Of course, they don't have a mortgage. They don't have to take care of people. True, they don't. However, their natural spirit is still something that we can tap into, even amongst having all of the responsibilities and all of the things that we have to do. That natural essence, that inner child, is still there. And what's even more important about finding that inner child and expressing that inner joy is that it leads to more energy. So there's a really interesting connection between doing what you enjoy and energy. Think about the last time you did something that was really fun. So for me, I love to dance. I can dance for hours. Even when I'm tired, let my song come on. I go from being an auntie to now I got Meg the Stallion knees. So I magically come up with some energy when a song that comes on that I love, and I just want to get back on the dance floor one more time. Think about art. Think about reading. I can read for hours. If I'm into the book, even something like if you're binge watching something on Netflix, if you're really into it and you're enjoying the storyline, you're enjoying what you're watching, Hours can go by without you thinking about what time it is. You magically conjure up energy to do the things that you really love to do. Now think about something that you don't want to do. I remember for years, I was stuck in corporate roles that were literally draining the life force energy out of me. Like, you would think I was in a coma Monday through Friday. Like, they could have wheeled me in on a stretcher to work. Like, that's how I felt inside. I was like, I have to do this commute again. I have to step into this office again and be in these mind-numbing meetings. And we're in hours and hours of meetings, and still, for some reason, nothing really gets done. And so I use that as an example. We can all think of the things that we don't like to do, what we don't enjoy, and how draining that is on our mental and physical energy. And so there is a very profound connection between joy and energy that I don't think that we understand enough and that we don't exploit enough. Think about the people who are living joyful lives. Think about how they make you feel when they enter a room. Their aura, their energy field carries, it precedes them oftentimes in a room. They light up a room. These are the people that you're like, oh my gosh, I just met so-and-so. I had an amazing conversation. These people that are happy and joyful, you leave them feeling energized. Like their energy, their being is infectious. Now, again, think about the opposite. Think about the people that you're like, oh my gosh, if I got to talk to her one more time, I don't care that so-and-so broke up with her. Like at some point you start to you lose the even basic empathy and compassion when people are so draining. Like they bring you down. They can bring down the mood of an entire room. If you grew up in the 80s like me, if you're a girl of a certain era, you remember Winnie the Pooh and the character Eeyore. Eeyore just brought everybody down with his doom and gloom. It was like he was a walking dark cloud. And so I think about how powerful our energy is and how joy is like a natural battery. I see joy as a renewable energy source that can not only power you to do the things that you want to do in this life, but can influence and energize the people around you. So by now you might be thinking, okay, all of that sounds great. Yeah. Joy, that's cute, but I got problems. And I don't mean to make light of this because we all do have very real problems. I've yet to meet a person, myself included, that hasn't been through some things. We have all been through some things. But underneath that, there's still choice. And let me give you a story of how I came to learn this for myself. So I talk a lot about the experience of losing my husband because that fundamentally shifted my life. So, and I write about the journey of recovering from that in my book. But one of the most profound lessons that I learned since then was the power that I have to choose to be happy again. So about a month or so after my husband passed away, as you can imagine, I was still in a very deep cloud of grief. I had physical pains. I was having panic attacks. I was so deeply despondent almost. I didn't even want to leave my room. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life anymore. And if you've ever been in a period of depression or grief, you know, at some point, it just feels like it's never ending. It feels like it's never going to end and you're never going to feel better. So I woke up one morning and I was having just this feeling of anguish, and something in my spirit whispered to me to get out of bed and do some movement. And I remembered, I was like, I know I have a yoga mat somewhere. Luckily, there was one within eyesight in my room. And so I rolled out of bed, like literally almost fell out of bed because I just had no energy. So imagine the slowest roll out of bed. And I grab that yoga mat and I turn on the TV, I pull up YouTube, and I start doing just a basic, like 15 minutes, I think, just introductory yoga class. And by the end of that, going through the motions of just moving my body and breathing, something about feeling the breath coursing through my body made me feel alive again. And then if you've done yoga, you know one of the final poses usually is Shavasana. So I'm laying there in Shavasana or corpse pose, and immediately I feel this like rush come over my body, this rush of stillness and relaxation and relief. And then I hear the voice of my husband say, "I'm here with you." And tears start streaming down my eyes because I feel his presence. But I think I was crying because for the first time in over a month, I knew that I was going to be okay. I didn't know how, but I knew in that moment that I would be okay. And it also helped me realize, okay, I made a choice for myself today. I made the choice to get out of bed and do some movement. I could have easily made another choice. The choice I had made every other morning before that is to stay in bed a little bit longer and wallow in my sorrow. I would have been well within my rights to choose that because I was in such deep pain, such deep anguish, such deep longing for my husband to come back. But that simple act of making a choice set a domino effect into motion. And it gave me the courage and the permission to make more good choices. So I decided to do a little bit of an experiment and say, okay, what if I choose one thing to make me happy every single day? Now, at first it felt weird because I felt like I was betraying my grief. I felt like I was in some way dishonoring him by being happy because that would be moving on too soon. It's funny the ways that we kind of keep ourselves stuck. Really, our mind keeps ourselves stuck. What I really believe now is happening, my heart or my spirit was battling with my mind and my programming. And so I was able to work through that both in therapy, but also in daily experimentation. The more that I leaned into, let me just try to do something that makes me happy. And my therapist also asked me a really important question that stuck with me. She said, "What would he want for you?" And I knew without a shadow of a doubt that my husband Al would want me to be happy again. And I applied that same rationale, that same principle to all kinds of decisions in my life. So I tell that story to illustrate how simple sometimes it is for us to forget that we actually have choice in our life, that we can choose to do the familiar that may be keeping us stuck or keeping us in a rut, or we can choose to shake up our pattern and do something different and make a better choice that ultimately will lead to more happiness, more joy. And so I started making more simple choices like that. And I'm talking really simple, like, okay, today I'm going to go get frozen yogurt. Or today I'm going to take a longer walk. I'm going to go back out and walk by myself, not walk with my dog. Or I'm going to treat myself to a new coffee shop. I love coffee. So it became kind of a fun thing for me to like, oh, let me try this coffee shop, or let me try this thing. Let me go and maybe go shopping, treat myself to some new lipstick, or so whatever it is that you enjoy. I think it's so important for us to find those little things, and eventually that snowballs into bigger things. Like for me, and I tell this story in the book, I just told y'all earlier that I love to dance. And so one of the big things I did for enjoyment was I threw myself a lavish, it was supposed to be my 40th birthday, but it ended up being 41 more time is what I called it because of COVID, I had to delay it. But at any rate, I ended up hiring backup dancers to perform with me at my birthday party. Now, most people would be like, okay, you are doing the absolute most. And yes, I literally was doing the absolute most. But I still look back at that birthday, and that was so special to me because I allowed myself to indulge. And I had so much fun. I still remember that experience because I took a risk on myself, or what some people may perceive as a risk. I allowed myself to put myself out there. I hadn't danced in years, like being able to do a choreographed routine in front of my guests. Like I could have broke an ankle. I could have fell flat on my face, but it is still of all of my years, I look back, not only was that my best birthday party, but it is one of the most funnest nights I've had. So I encourage you to think about what are some of the things that you enjoy doing. That night happened because I chose to be joyful. I chose to throw myself a party, even in the midst of still grieving the loss of my husband. I made that choice because I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. I got tired of being in deep grief and deep sadness. My spirit could not take it anymore. And so I made the choice to heal slowly, day by day, by making a domino of good choices. Life is always going to life, right? Think about it. There are going to always be things outside of our control. You can't control if tomorrow someone breaks into your car, or if your job decides they're going to lay off your entire department. You can't control those things, but you can decide that despite my circumstances, despite my preferences, as Michael Singer says it, I'm going to be joyful anyways. Before I lost my husband, I would have said one of my preferences was to be married, to be in a relationship. And what I learned through losing him was that, yes, although that's a preference, that is no longer a condition of my happiness, of my joy, because I learned painstakingly through my healing process how to find joy within. I had finally come to terms with I may not be in a relationship for a really long time. I don't know if I'll ever get married again. And lo and behold, once I decided that I wanted to be happy again, that I wanted to find that joy, that I would allow myself to have that kind of joy again, when I was out there living my best life, doing me, I ended up finding someone. I ended up attracting another partner in my life. And so I think that's also something that happens when we don't let ourselves get bogged down by the circumstances of today, or even if you've had a rough couple of years. If you can take a step back and develop some perspective that all things are temporary. One of my favorite scriptures still, and I can't tell you the psalm, but I know it's a psalm. It says, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. I love that psalm because it illustrates so beautifully the temporary nature of all conditions. Whatever you're going through today does not mean you have to go through that tomorrow. And a lot of that comes down to your own choice or choices. As Michael Singer says in The Untethered Soul, any conditions you create will limit your happiness. Once I stopped caring so much about all of these conditions of I need this to be happy, I need that, I need this person to be happy. Once I truly just went on an experimental journey to find joy on my own without any conditions, that's exactly what I found. This led me to genuinely living a joyful, carefree, for the most part, I'm still human, but even when I get bouts of worry or doubt, I now have the tools and the practices to come back to myself and know that deep inside I'm okay and my joy is still intact. And that's what I want to do through this podcast, is to share those lessons, those tips, those practical nuggets that I've learned along the way, and have my guests, of course, come in and share their own wisdom about how they continue to find bliss and joy in their life amidst all that we're all dealing with on a daily basis. So as we close today, I want to leave you with a couple of things to think about. I invite you to find a quiet place for yourself. You may even want to pause, write these questions down, and do them now, or save them for later when you have time to really sit with them. But I want you to think through a few questions. One, where are you limiting your joy? And if you don't have an answer immediately, just replay your day. Think back of, was there something that you wanted to do but didn't allow yourself, didn't make the time for? Usually we know where we're holding back. So ask yourself genuinely, where are you limiting your joy? Secondly, how are you test driving happiness instead of fully embracing it? Where are you tiptoeing around joy? You're letting yourself indulge just a little bit. You allow yourself to have a little taste of happiness, but not a full bite, not the full meal. What do you love doing as a child that you haven't embraced for a while? What are some of those things that you love to do that you can bring back into your life? What did you do as a kid to play? Play is such an important way to renew our energy. What are the things that you can do for hours and lose yourself in? When we're in that flow state, it's called, you end up losing track of time. When you're doing that type of pure enjoyment, you can do it forever. So what are those things? Oftentimes it's things that we enjoy doing as a child. And lastly, what is one small step that you can take towards that joy? One small step. I don't need you to create a PowerPoint. I don't need a dissertation. Don't you dare make a spreadsheet listing out all of the things that you want in your life to bring you joy. We don't need all that right now. Sometimes we overcomplicate and we overthink. All I'm asking is for you to come up with one simple action that you can take today towards your joy. You don't have to have it all baked out. You don't have to have the full plan. I guarantee you, you take that one action. If it feels enjoyable, your body, your spirit will figure out a way to keep that coming if your mind allows it. So get out of your mind, get back into your heart, start small, and let that snowball into even greater joy that you can hold on to regardless of what life puts on your path. I hope you have a beautiful week. Take care.